One of the first things I learned when I got exposed to the truth was that federal judges, state judges, judges in your traffic courts and such are a very, very serious problem in this country. Most of them, of course, are attorneys. They're a very serious problem because they want to use your power. They want access to your power. They want you to be powerless. They want to be powerful. What we want to do today, right here, is communicate with you so that you understand that you can take your power back. You don't have to let that judge use your power. You are the ones with the power. The consent of the governed. Let me read just a little bit more here out of the Declaration, the unanimous Declaration. The consent of the governed is where I stopped. Then it goes on and it says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established shall not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown, and I love this, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. Have you become accustomed to suffering? These men had such wisdom. All experience tells us that people will suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Have you suffered enough at the gas pump? Have you suffered enough at the grocery counter? This is all programmed. This is all planned. They think they've got you down to the point where you're programmed to where you'll take anything that they dish out. And we've been allowing them to get away with it. Terrorism. A war on terrorism. This is what you and I should be involved in, is in a war against the terrorism of our federal government and state governments as well. Who were the terrorists at Medina, North Dakota in 1983? Who were the terrorists? Was it the U.S. Marshals or was it Gordon Call? It was the U.S. Marshals. And I hope they've got a representative here today to hear me say it. They're the ones that set it up. They're the ones that caused that all to happen. How about Ruby Ridge? Who were the terrorists there? We know who the terrorists were. They were on the government payroll. And the grand juries in Idaho let them get away with it. How about Waco? In Waco, we've got some Texans, I think, here in this audience. In Waco, I'm fairly confident that that county where that took place, they would have at least 3 county grand juries. They pride themselves in Texas about their grand jury law and how accessible you can be to the grand jury. I want to tell you what should have happened. On that Sunday when those marshals conducted that initial raid on what they called the compound out there, the people in that county became very much aware of what was happening very quickly because it was on the media. People were talking on the phone and such. There were at least 3, possibly 4 county grand juries functioning in that county. There wasn't one single member of a grand jury that knew what their responsibility was that day. Remember the fellow that run over his 2-year-old? He said, "I didn't know." Those people on the grand jury said, "We didn't know that." They should have been getting on the phone to the other members of their grand jury. They should have been on the phone with the foreman of the grand jury. He's the one that really should, or she should have been the one that was first alerted. And they should have gotten together with their heads that afternoon, that Sunday afternoon, and then they should have made a phone call to the county sheriff and told the county sheriff, tomorrow morning, this grand jury is going to meet at McDonald's on such and such a street in Waco. We're going to be there at 6 o'clock, and we want you there at 15 minutes after, 6:15. We're going to call the district attorney, and we're going to order him to be at McDonald's at that location tomorrow morning at 6:30. Not only that, we're going to call the Attorney General for the state of Texas, and we're going to tell him to be there at 6:45. We're going to call the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we're going to tell him, you are to be there at 7. It didn't happen. We had a massacre. We had an atrocity. Because there were people that said, I didn't know. I didn't know. Oklahoma City. We had one gentleman on the grand jury that asked questions that the U.S. Attorney's Office did not want to answer, and said they booted him off of the grand jury. And the other people on the grand jury sat there like a bunch of dummies. And there were probably college-educated people on that grand jury that sat there and allowed the U.S. attorney to kick that one gentleman off of the grand jury that was asking the proper questions. That grand jury should have sent the U.S. attorney out of the room immediately, and they should have discussed it, and they should have indicted the U.S. attorney for obstruction of justice. The U.S. attorney is not the master of the grand jury. The grand jury is supposed to be the master of the U.S. attorney or the prosecuting attorney. Everything is upside down and backwards. I've been crisscrossing this nation now for over 30 years, and I've been repeating this over and over again. But for some reason, people just don't take it serious, I guess. Because here we are, 2008, and we're still in trouble. However, I'm an optimist. I still think that we have time. The Ron Paul revolution, Ron Paul led the way there, and he's kind of dropped off by the wayside here